The information on this podcast from Dr. Troy Munson is meant to educate the listener on a variety of health issues. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any conditions.
Has your health been covered up? Today, it's Revealing Wholeness with Dr. Troy Munson, presented to you by Infinity Whole Health.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness. Today we're going to talk about, as a new client comes in to see me, they often have these tests, and they love tests. And Bill, have you ever been to a doctor and had tests?
Well, I've had tests, yes, but it's always interesting. What's the right kind of test to have, though?
You know, it's a great question because people ask me all the time, what's meaningful to me? And their blood tests are meaningful to me. I do like specifics on blood tests, and we'll do a podcast on that. There are even saliva tests out there that have a lot of information. And people don't realize that when I go to the blood is the repository or kind of like the reserve of things in our body. And it's not a great indicator of what's happening at the cellular level. And so blood tests are only so good. They will tell us some things because there are norms that doctors have, and then there's optimals within that blood test. So where the medical profession has a very large, broad range of normal, and they can only do something when you're out of that normal, meaning drug-wise, within that wide range of normal on any test, there's a very narrow optimal range. So if you have blood tests and you're thinking about bringing them into me, definitely please do that, because I will look at those because they're important from a standpoint or a functional standpoint. We know that there's optimals that you should be in that are very narrow ranges. The next thing that people will do, like let's just take a quick simple test like somebody's fatigued and they come in and I do what they call an ASI. It's an adrenal stress index. And so that's a saliva test. It's a 4-sample test over 1 day, and I'm going to watch the cortisol in their body go up and down, plus sugar and other things that are all indeed adrenal related. And so we can look at that test, and now we get a wealth of information of how they're functioning day to day, why they don't sleep well, why don't they have any energy, why do they feel heart palpitations, why is their blood sugar a mess. We can look at those kinds of tests and tell a lot of information. And saliva is nice because whatever's available to me in the saliva is actually what's available to tissue. So that's why saliva tests are becoming more and more popular, because they're very now and accurate and dynamic. And so we like seeing saliva tests. But one of the tests you're holding right there is a hair test.
Yes, and it tells so many different things about you, the zinc and all these different minerals.
Yep. And so a hair test, like if you ask most professionals if they had only one test they could do, some might choose to do a saliva test. But most of my mentors, and I included, I love the hair test because it tells me so much. Yes, we can see calcium levels, what's available to tissues, magnesium, sodium, potassium, the big four. We can see things like copper, which is technically vitamin C. We can see iron and how it's doing. We can see zinc, which is hormonal balance. We can see selenium, which is health, vitality, immune function. Chromium, how is their sugar handling doing? How is phosphorus doing, which is their energy capabilities? And then there's ratios, like what's calcium to magnesium. What does that tell me? Well, that tells me sugar balancing. How are you handling sugar accurately? What's your adrenal function? Well, that's another mineral ratio. What's your thyroid function? That's another mineral ratio. How is your overall vitality? I mean, are you healthy, or do you have some very serious health conditions going on? And that's sodium magnesium. What is your rate of tearing down tissue in your body? That's another mineral ratio. Then we have the trace minerals, which tell me things. And then we have the heavy metals that are minerals that shouldn't be in the system. And there should be a little bit, we walk down the street in a city where there's traffic, you're going to have levels of cadmium in your hair. You're going to have levels of mercury in your hair. You're going to have levels of aluminum in your hair, just like drinking pop and things. So those are things we want to know that your body's able to excrete those. So not only does a hair test kind of give me an overall how deficient are you in these minerals, but it also tells me the ratios, and now I get to see organ functions and hormone functions and heart and vascular, all these different functions, all from a hair test. And so that's why if we had one test we could do, we would really choose the hair test over most tests. So if we want the most bang for the buck, a hair test between $90, $100, and $120, you're looking at a saliva test that might be a couple $100, but still the wealth of information is phenomenal. So if you're going to a functional doctor thinking about it, these are tests that you could expect to have done. And again, don't shy away from them because it can be very, very telling, and it gives us a very good roadmap of where to go. Hair tests, typically I'll redo them about every 6 months. The hair, it changes slowly. It takes time to get minerals back into the tissues and hormones to balance, and organ systems to recover and to show better mineral ratios. So, that just takes time. Don't be too overzealous, but if you want to spend the dough, you certainly can do them more frequently, but about 6 months is a good time frame.
So that's a good time frame. Do most doctors require this? Do they really get into this? Because every time I go in, it seems like they're taking blood or they're taking urine.
Yes.
And balancing out those two to come up with a diagnosis of what they think the problem is.
Yep.
This is the first time I've heard of this, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, most doctors are going to shy away from hair tests because they think that there's not a lot of clinical evidence out there. But the company that I go with, they don't wash the hair. We want to make sure that when you present the hair that you might wash it with just soap, so there's not a lot of residue on it, and that you're not using something like a Selsun Blue that would add selenium to the hair and make it look, elevated. So we want the hair to be pretty clean, no hair dyeing for 6 weeks. And so we can make sure that we have an accurate idea of what the hair is. And we take the hair closest to the body. And this particular company has done, I think, over 400,000 hair tests.
Wow. And
so the evidence that we have and what we see, and when we apply it clinically to what's going on with their case, and then give them the nutrients and watch their bodies heal, and then redo hair tests, we see them improve. So we really do have a good understanding of what the hair test means to us. And it is accurate to a point, yes.
So to come out with a diagnosis once we do the hair test, how do we balance out the deficiencies that you're seeing in these tests?
Great question. So let's say we have low copper. I can't give copper and raise copper. It's dependent upon other things. Like calcium, I can't tell you how many people come in and they have high calcium in their hair. And what that means is that they're under a lot of stress, and every cell in their body is trying to protect them by creating a calcium shell, we call it. So just because we see an elevated mineral, oftentimes it may not necessarily mean what we believe it to mean. Like the test you're looking at there, it says high copper. That's my hair test 5 years ago.
Oh.
I was around swimming pools, and in swimming pools they put copper, and so I had tons of metallic copper in my body, and it's coming out through my hair. And when it was coming out, my gut was just killing me because the copper is really toxic to the human body and really hard on the gut. And there's ways to make it come out much more easily so that it's not so painful, obviously. But what we really need to do is we need to supply good copper. We need good vitamin C going in the system and real copper to offset that metallic copper that I had absorbed in my body while I grew up swimming in a swimming pool all my youth in Phoenix. And so, these tests can tell us things, but their history also tells us a tremendous amount. Most people you see with low potassium, low sodium, and that's a classic adrenal issue. And so as we start rebuilding adrenals, we see those levels start to come up naturally. We don't necessarily have to supply a lot of those things. Zinc is something we want to see come in because zinc helps other minerals absorb. But in order to absorb zinc, I've got to have good B vitamins, and synthetic Bs won't do it. So yes, there are things to do, but each mineral has to be in balance with other minerals. So as we see something low, it tells me, okay, I've got a problem with another mineral that I've got to address too. I just can't stare at that one mineral that's low or high and say, this is what you need. Oh, you have low sodium. Start taking salt in your diet. That's not how it works.
Very interesting indeed. Well, we really appreciate this. It gives us an opportunity to talk to our doctors with a little bit of education of what we should be expecting when we have diagnostic treatments.
Indeed. And until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.